It was Maya's first day at Rose Hill High School, a school known for its shiny buildings, rich students, and fancy uniforms. Maya wore the same uniform, but it didn't feel the same on her. She was quiet. Her shoes were clean but old. Her bag had a small tear at the corner. And her skin, beautiful and dark, made her stand out in a school where no one else looked like her. She walked slowly into the classroom, her books tight against her chest. The room was full of chatter and laughter. Students were already in groups, talking about parties, summer vacations, and brand new cars. No one noticed her. Until she sat down. There was an empty desk near the window. Maya quietly placed her books and sat. Just a few seconds later, a loud voice echoed across the room. "That's not your seat. Move." The class went quiet. Everyone turned to look. It was Jessica, the most popular girl in the school. Long blonde hair, expensive earrings, perfect smile. The kind of girl who always got what she wanted. Jessica stood with her hands on her hips. "You're in my front seat. You can sit over there." She pointed to a desk in the back corner. It was dusty. One leg wobbled. A broken chair sat next to it. Maya didn't move. She looked up, her eyes calm, but steady. "There's no name on this desk," she said softly. Jessica smirked. "Do you know who I am?" Maya nodded once, then looked away. Jessica rolled her eyes and turned to her friends. Unbelievable. First day, and she's already making trouble. A few girls laughed. A boy snickered. But Maya didn't speak again. She opened her notebook and quietly started writing. The teacher walked in just then. He looked around. Everyone in their seats. Good. He didn't question anything. Jessica's friend found another seat. And class began. But the whispers did too. "Who does she think she is? Did you see her bag? She's so weird." At lunch, Maya walked to the cafeteria. She stood quietly in the food line. She didn't know anyone. She didn't talk. She sat at a small table near the back. As she opened her lunchbox, someone walked by and accidentally bumped into her tray, spilling juice on her skirt. It was Jessica. "Oops," she said, laughing. "Didn't see you there." Maya stood up slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her voice wasn't. "My dad told me to be polite," she said, loud enough for only Jessica to hear, but not weak. Jessica blinked. That wasn't the answer she expected. Before she could say anything back, Maya picked up her tray, wiped the spill, and sat back down. She didn't cry. She didn't fight. She just ate her lunch, silently, with dignity. Later that day, in the hallway, Maya passed a group of students talking. One boy turned and looked at her curiously. "Hey," he said, walking beside her. "Why didn't you say anything to Jessica? Most people would shout or fight back." Maya smiled slightly. "Because I don't need to shout," she said. "Some truths shout for themselves." The boy looked confused. But then he noticed something. A small, shiny badge was clipped on the side of Maya's bag. It was hidden under the strap. It had a gold eagle on it, and the letters FBI. The boy frowned. Was it real? He quickly pulled out his phone and searched the image. His eyes went wide. "That's a real badge," he whispered to himself. But Maya was already walking away. That night, Jessica was at home, laughing with her friends on video chat. "She thinks she's so calm and special," she said. "She doesn't even talk back." "Like, what's her problem?" her friend asked. "Didn't you hear what she said? Something about her dad." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Yeah, right. Probably just trying to scare me." Then someone sent a message in the group chat. "Guys, check this out." It was a photo of the same badge Maya had, and a news headline. "Agent Carter honored by FBI for brave service." Jessica's smile slowly faded. The article showed a picture. A tall, serious man in a black suit, standing next to the FBI director. Next to him was a young girl, with the same eyes as Maya. Jessica's mouth opened slightly. No way, is that her dad? Her friend nodded. Yeah, he's some top agent, like super respected. Jessica's hand shook. What did I just do? The following days at school were hard for Maya. Everywhere she went, people were whispering about her. It wasn't just Jessica now. It was almost everyone. Maya had become the topic of the school's gossip. But Maya didn't mind. She was used to it. When she walked through the hallways, she didn't rush. She moved slowly, calmly, like someone who wasn't bothered by the noise around her. She had learned from her dad that silence was powerful. Silence could hold 100 truths that people would never understand. In the morning, as she sat down in class, she noticed the whispers didn't stop. They were louder now, as more students gathered around. Jessica wasn't the only one mocking her anymore. It was everyone. She's so weird. Who does she think she is? Acting all mysterious. She's probably one of those quiet know-it-alls. But Maya didn't flinch. She didn't look up or even give a sign that she heard them. She just opened her notebook, started writing, and waited for the bell to ring. At lunch, it was no better. As she walked into the cafeteria, Jessica was sitting with her usual group of friends. When Maya walked past them, Jessica's friend, Lily, made a loud comment. Hey, you better be careful. The seat's taken. She giggled, as though Maya had done something wrong by simply existing in the same space. Maya didn't say a word. She found an empty seat at the back and sat down, starting to eat her sandwich. Then it happened again. This time, Mark, a jock who thought he was always the center of attention, came up and sat across from her. You know, he said with a grin, if you wanted attention, you could have just asked. No need to act all mysterious. Maya glanced up at him, her eyes not angry, but steady. I'm not here for attention, she said, her voice calm. I'm here because it's lunch. Mark laughed, but there was something strange in his laugh. It wasn't the usual mocking laugh. It was more like he didn't know what to make of her. There was no reaction, no fight. It was like she wasn't even bothered. Maya took a small bite of her sandwich and noticed a few people staring. There was still something different about her. It wasn't just her quietness. It was her confidence, quiet, steady confidence that made the loudest people feel small. Later that afternoon, as the school day ended, Maya walked slowly out of the building, the usual crowd of students rushing past her. She felt the stares, the eyes that followed her every move, but she didn't let it bother her. She had learned how to ignore it. Just as she stepped outside, a voice called her name. Maya, wait up. It was Ben, the boy who had noticed her badge the other day. She turned to face him, raising an eyebrow. Yes. Ben jogged over to her, holding his phone in his hand. Look at this. He showed her his phone screen. It was a picture of Maya's dad from the FBI article. But the picture was zoomed in on the badge, on her dad's badge. I didn't believe it at first, Ben said. But I Googled it. Your dad is Agent Carter, right? The one who caught those criminals years ago. Maya nodded. Yes, he's my dad. Ben looked at her, wide-eyed. That's incredible. But why didn't you say anything? You never told anyone. Maya smiled softly, her eyes tired but kind. Because it's not important. People don't need to know who my dad is. They just need to see who I am. Ben stood in silence for a moment, trying to understand. Then he hesitated. But why don't you fight back? He asked. Why don't you tell them off, show them who you really are? Maya looked at him for a long moment, her gaze steady. Then she spoke. Because I already know who I am. And one day, they'll realize too. Ben blinked. Something about her words made him feel like he was missing something important, something deep. But he didn't press further. I just wanted to say, I think you're pretty amazing. Maya smiled again, more brightly this time. Thanks. Ben turned to leave, but then stopped and glanced back at her. You're different, Maya. But I think that's what makes you real." Maya didn't answer. She simply nodded, watching him walk away. That night, Jessica couldn't stop thinking about Maya. She'd never met anyone like her. No matter what she did, no matter how much she tried to push her, Maya stayed calm, cool, untouchable. Jessica had tried everything. First, she tried mocking her in class. When that didn't work, she tried embarrassing her at lunch. Then, when that didn't shake Maya's confidence, Jessica spread rumors. But none of it worked. Maya never reacted. And that made Jessica feel unsettled. It made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the most important person in the room anymore. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was when she saw Ben talking to Maya after school. Ben, the boy she always thought would be too good for someone like Maya. But there they were, talking like old friends. Jessica clenched her fists. The next morning, as Maya walked into class the next morning, she was greeted with even more whispers. But something had changed. There was a strange energy in the air, something different. She sat down in her usual seat by the window, opened her notebook, and started writing. She didn't look up, didn't glance at anyone. She didn't care about the rumors anymore. They didn't matter to her. Jessica, who usually sat across from her, was now sitting quietly at her desk. She didn't make any more rude comments. Maya didn't say anything. But something told her their battle was far from over. The following weeks were full of quiet tension. Maya didn't speak much, but people couldn't stop talking about her. Everywhere she went, whispers followed her. But she didn't let it bother her. She stayed focused. She knew the rumors would eventually fade. And they did. Slowly. But new, more dangerous whispers replaced them. Maya's calm was becoming a mystery. Jessica, for all her attempts to tear Maya down, started feeling unsettled. For the first time in years, she wasn't in control. Her friends could feel it too. They all watched Maya, trying to understand why she acted the way she did. What did she know that they didn't? One afternoon, Jessica sat with her friends at lunch, pretending not to care. She glanced over at Maya, who was sitting alone again, just like always. The strange badge Maya wore on her bag caught her eye, glinting in the sunlight. Jessica had seen it before, but this time, it wasn't just the shiny eagle symbol that made her stomach twist. It was the recognition. It wasn't just any badge. That eagle meant something powerful. And Jessica knew it wasn't just a random symbol Maya decided to pin to her bag. It was a badge from the FBI. Later that day, Jessica couldn't stop thinking about it. She couldn't shake the image of Maya sitting there so calm and unaffected by everything. She had to know what was going on. She had to know why Maya was so different. She grabbed her phone and Googled FBI badges in a quiet panic. She clicked on several links until one caught her eye. A picture of a man in a sharp black suit. Next to him stood a little girl who looked so much like Maya, it was almost impossible to ignore. She quickly scrolled through the article, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the headline. FBI Agent Carter receives honor for outstanding service. The article talked about a dangerous case Agent Carter had worked on years ago, a case that had made national headlines. The photo with the little girl was a reminder of the past. The girl, with her bright eyes, had been his daughter, Maya's dad. Jessica's hands shook as she read the article. "No way," she whispered. It all clicked. Maya wasn't just some quiet new girl from a broken family. Her dad was an FBI agent, and a respected one at that. The realization hit Jessica like a punch to the gut. All the things she had said to Maya, all the things she had mocked her for, they were all meaningless now. She had no idea who she was messing with. The next day, Jessica arrived at school early. She walked slowly, her mind still racing with the truth she had uncovered. She was too deep in thought to notice Maya walking by her until she almost ran into her. For a moment, they stood there, Jessica, standing tall with her usual confidence, and Maya, standing just as tall but with an unspoken strength in her quiet eyes. Maya didn't speak, but the silence was loud. Jessica looked away first, suddenly feeling small. She didn't want to look weak, but in that moment, she couldn't help it. Something about Maya's presence made her question everything. Maya wasn't just a girl with a mysterious silence. She was the daughter of someone powerful, someone who could change things in an instant. The power Maya carried was invisible, but it was undeniable. That afternoon, Jessica didn't know why she did it, but she found herself outside at the end of the day, standing by the school gates, watching Maya walk alone. She was always alone, but this time, something inside Jessica made her move. She walked quickly over to Maya and caught up with her just outside the school. "Maya," Jessica said, her voice softer than usual. "Wait." Maya stopped but didn't turn around. "What is it, Jessica?" Jessica hesitated. She never spoke like this, not to anyone who wasn't in her circle, but there was something about Maya that made her feel ashamed. I didn't mean the things I said to you. I was just trying to make people laugh." Jessica stumbled over her words, not used to admitting fault. "But I see now, you're not like the others. You're different, and I shouldn't have treated you like that." Maya turned slowly, her eyes meeting Jessica's. There was no anger in them, just the same quiet strength. "It's okay," Maya said simply. "You don't need to apologize. We all make mistakes." Jessica swallowed hard. She had expected to feel better after apologizing, but instead, she felt something deeper, a kind of discomfort. She wasn't sure what to do with this feeling, but it was real, and for the first time in her life, it made her question everything she had been taught about popularity, power, and pride. Later that night, at home, Jessica sat in her room, scrolling through the article again. Her mind was racing. Everything about Maya was a mystery, and the more she uncovered, the more she realized how little she understood about who she was. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her friend Lily. "Hey, did you hear? Some kid in our class was talking about Maya's dad. He's some big deal at the FBI. I heard he saved a lot of lives. Don't mess with her." Jessica stared at the message for a moment. It was all starting to make sense now. Maya wasn't just someone who took the high road. She wasn't someone who needed to fight or yell. Maya carried a weight that Jessica couldn't even begin to understand. But Maya wasn't using it to hurt anyone. She was using it to be quiet, to stay calm, to survive. And that was something Jessica couldn't take away. After Jessica's awkward apology to Maya, things started to shift. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't loud. But the tension between them was different now. Less of a battle, more of a quiet understanding. Maya didn't treat Jessica like she was anything special. She didn't pretend to like her, nor did she hold a grudge. Maya simply was. It was the most powerful thing Jessica had ever seen, and it terrified her. Maya went back to sitting quietly in class, writing in her notebook, hardly speaking to anyone. And yet the classroom was filled with whispers about her. But this time, it wasn't mockery. It was curiosity. Everyone wanted to know what made her so unshakable. They wanted to know who she was and why she acted the way she did. But Jessica had learned something important. Maya's calm wasn't weakness. It was strength, quiet, and controlled. And there was something about that calmness that kept Jessica up at night. The days after the apology, Jessica couldn't stop thinking about the conversation she had with Maya. She hadn't expected the apology to feel like a failure, but that's what it had felt like. Instead of a sense of relief, she had walked away feeling like Maya had already forgiven her, and she hadn't even asked for it. It was like Maya didn't need her forgiveness, and that realization stung. It made Jessica question herself more than she ever had before. She'd always been popular, always been the one in control. People listened to her, but with Maya, nothing worked. Maya didn't care about her status, her popularity, or her opinions, and that fact was haunting. The lunchroom. By the end of the week, Jessica found herself at lunch, staring at Maya from across the room. Maya was sitting alone, as usual, but something was different today. She wasn't writing in her notebook. Instead, she was just sitting there, looking out the window, lost in thought. Something inside Jessica shifted. Maybe it was the guilt that had been building up, or maybe it was the curiosity that had been gnawing at her since she'd learned about Maya's dad. Whatever it was, she found herself standing up, walking over to Maya's table, and sitting down across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Jessica didn't know what to say. She didn't even know why she was sitting there. Finally, Maya looked up at her, her eyes calm but curious. "What are you doing here?" Maya asked, her voice soft but steady. Jessica shrugged, feeling the weight of the question. She didn't know why she was there. It wasn't like she wanted to be friends with Maya. But it also wasn't like she wanted to keep pretending like Maya didn't exist. She had learned that much. "I don't know. I just thought I'd sit with you." Maya raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. She went back to looking out the window, and Jessica followed her gaze. For a few moments, the two of them just sat there in silence. The quiet between them was strange. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't the warm, friendly silence Jessica was used to with her friends. This was different. This was a silence that spoke of things left unsaid. The change begins. The next few days passed in a strange haze. Jessica found herself thinking more and more about Maya. She had stopped trying to get attention for herself and started observing Maya's quiet strength. Maya didn't react to insults. She didn't fight back when people whispered about her behind her back. She didn't try to get anyone's approval. She simply existed. And Jessica, the girl who always needed to be the center of attention, the one who thrived on people's opinions of her, was starting to feel a shift inside her. One day after school, Jessica had a free period. She usually spent it with her friends, but this time, she found herself walking out of the school gates and heading in the direction of Maya's house. She wasn't sure why she was doing it. Maybe it was the feeling that she had to understand Maya. Maybe it was the feeling that her own world was starting to unravel. Whatever the reason, Jessica knocked on Maya's door. Maya opened it, looking surprised but not uncomfortable. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" she asked, her calm tone never faltering. Jessica took a deep breath, trying to figure out how to start. "Hi, I wanted to know more about you," she said, her voice softer than usual. Maya stepped back, allowing Jessica to enter. They sat in the living room in silence, the only sound being the quiet hum of the air conditioner. Maya didn't ask questions. She didn't make Jessica feel awkward. She just let her be. Finally, Jessica spoke. "You're not like anyone I know. You don't care what people think. And you don't try to be someone you're not. How do you do that?" she asked, looking at Maya with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Maya looked at her, her gaze steady but not judgmental. "I've learned that it doesn't matter what people think about me. I can't control that. All I can control is myself," she said quietly. "And I'd learned to be okay with that." Jessica felt a strange tightness in her chest. She had never heard anyone say something like that before. Maya wasn't afraid of rejection. She wasn't afraid of being alone. She was okay with who she was, and that was something Jessica didn't understand. "I wish I could be like that," Jessica whispered, feeling a mix of admiration and envy. Maya gave her a small, knowing smile. "You can be. But first, you have to stop trying to be someone you're not. People see through that." Jessica nodded, her mind racing. She didn't know how to respond. She had spent her whole life trying to be perfect, trying to be the one everyone liked. But Maya was different. She didn't need anyone to like her. She was just herself. Later that evening, as Jessica walked home that evening, the world felt different. The sun was setting, casting a golden light on everything around her. She could still hear Maya's words echoing in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to understand what Maya had been trying to teach her all along. For the first time in a long while, Jessica felt like she wasn't just a player in a game. She wasn't trying to win anymore. She wasn't trying to be popular. She was beginning to understand what it meant to be real. After their conversation, things between Jessica and Maya felt different. The barriers that had once separated them were slowly starting to crumble. Maya, with her quiet strength, had unknowingly forced Jessica to look inward, to question the world she'd been living in, the world where appearances mattered more than anything else. But Jessica was still in the process of figuring out who she really was. She didn't have all the answers, and neither did Maya. Still, Jessica found herself drawn to Maya, to the calmness she exuded, to the way Maya seemed unshaken by everything around her. Maya had a power that Jessica could only begin to understand, a power that wasn't loud or flashy. It was subtle, like a river running deep beneath the surface, unnoticed by most, but undeniable once you paid attention. The days after their talk, Jessica began sitting next to Maya more often, though it wasn't out of any need for approval. It was simply because being around Maya felt different, calm, centered. Jessica found herself listening more than she spoke, trying to learn how to be still, how to not care about things that didn't really matter. But even with all the quiet change, there was one thing Jessica hadn't fully realized. Maya wasn't just a quiet girl with an unshakable presence. Maya was someone with a past, one that Jessica had only begun to scratch the surface of. The encounter at the schoolyard. It was a Friday afternoon when Jessica saw it. She had been walking toward the school gates when she noticed Maya talking to a man by the fence. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit, and looked out of place in the usual schoolyard. Maya, as always, was calm, but Jessica could sense a tension in her stance. Just the slightest tightening of her shoulders, a subtle stiffness in her posture. Curious, Jessica moved closer, trying to be discreet. She hid behind a tree, peeking out from behind it as Maya spoke to the man. "I told you, Maya, we can't keep pretending like this. Your father needs to know you're safe," the man said in a low voice, his tone serious, almost pleading. Maya shook her head slowly. "I'm fine, Agent West. I'm not going anywhere. I won't let him use me as a pawn." Jessica's heart raced. Agent West. The name seemed familiar, but it didn't fully register in her mind. She tried to make sense of what was going on. Who was this man? And why was he talking to Maya like that? Maya's expression remained neutral, but Jessica could see the subtle tightness in her jaw, the way her lips pressed together in a thin line. There was something happening, something Jessica wasn't aware of. But Maya's next words were the ones that shook Jessica to the core. "I won't be used like I was before. I won't let you bring him into this." Agent West's face softened as he looked at her. "We're just trying to protect you, Maya. You can't keep running from this. Your father's disappearance isn't just something you can ignore." Father's disappearance. Jessica felt a sharp pang of realization. Everything was starting to fall into place. Maya's father wasn't just an FBI agent. He was missing. And whatever had happened to him, it had left Maya alone to carry a burden she shouldn't have had to bear. Maya remained silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke again. "I'm not running from anything. But I'm not going to let you pull me back into that world either. I'm my own person now. I've learned to survive without him." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and for the first time, Jessica saw the cracks in Maya's calm exterior. Maya wasn't invincible. She wasn't just a mysterious, quiet girl. Maya was a survivor, someone who had been through something much harder than anyone could imagine. The revelation. Jessica didn't know what to do with the information she had just learned. Her mind raced with the implications. Maya wasn't just a girl trying to navigate high school. She was carrying a weight much heavier than Jessica could comprehend. As the school bell rang, signaling the end of the day, Jessica found herself walking alongside Maya again. They walked in silence, the only sound between them being the distant chatter of students leaving school for the weekend. Finally, Jessica broke the silence. "Maya, I didn't know," she said softly. "About your dad. About what's been going on." Maya didn't respond right away. She seemed lost in thought, her eyes ahead, her pace slow but steady. "You don't need to know," Maya said, her voice quieter than usual. "It's not your burden to carry." Jessica's heart twisted at her words. She had always thought she knew what it meant to carry burdens, to have secrets. But Maya's secret, her past, was a heavy weight that Jessica could never truly understand, no matter how much she tried. "But I want to understand," Jessica said, her voice almost pleading. Maya stopped walking and turned to face her. Her eyes were calm, but there was something in them now, a depth that Jessica had never seen before. "I don't need sympathy, Jessica," Maya said, her voice steady, almost firm. "I don't want pity. I've been through a lot, and I've learned how to survive. But that doesn't mean I'm okay. It doesn't mean I'm perfect. It just means I'm trying to figure out how to keep going, even when it feels like the world is against me." Jessica stood there for a long moment, trying to process everything. She didn't have any words to say in response. She couldn't. But as Maya walked away, Jessica felt something shift deep inside her. She wasn't just looking at Maya anymore. She was seeing her. She was seeing the pain, the strength, and the courage it took for Maya to keep going every single day. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. The things Maya had said, the things she had learned, weighed heavily on her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about Maya's father, about the danger she was in, and about how much she had taken her own life for granted. For the first time in years, Jessica didn't care about being popular. She didn't care about the parties, the status, or the friends who only stuck around when it was convenient. She cared about something deeper now. She cared about Maya. And somehow, in the midst of all this confusion and chaos, Jessica realized that she wasn't alone in her struggles. She wasn't the only one carrying a heavy burden. Maya had her own battles, battles that Jessica had never even known existed. The weeks that followed were a blur for Jessica. The more she tried to understand Maya, the more she felt herself slipping into a place she wasn't sure how to navigate. Maya had always been an enigma to her, but now there was a rawness to their interactions. A truth was unfolding in front of her, one that she wasn't sure she was prepared to face. Jessica had found herself spending more time with Maya, but it was no longer just curiosity that kept her close. Something deeper was at play, something she couldn't ignore. Maya had become more than just a mystery to be solved. She had become a person Jessica couldn't shake from her mind, a person whose silence spoke volumes. But with that deepening connection came something else: fear. The school event. It was a Friday afternoon when the school organized its annual event, a talent show of sorts, where everyone could showcase whatever they wanted. Jessica had initially planned to take part, as she always did, the center of attention, performing some dramatic monologue. But this year, something had shifted inside her. She wasn't so sure she wanted to be the star of the show anymore. And when she glanced over at Maya, who was sitting in the back, quietly reading her book as always, Jessica felt a strange pull. For the first time, she wasn't looking at Maya like a challenge or a mystery. She was looking at her as a friend. But the thing about friends is that they hold your secrets. And Maya, Jessica knew, was holding a lot. Jessica had overheard more conversations between Maya and Agent West. Each time, they were about the same thing: her father's disappearance. The way Agent West seemed to try to pull Maya back into the world of secrets, of dangers, that Jessica couldn't understand. Maya kept refusing. Yet, despite her insistence that she was fine, Jessica saw the cracks. She saw how Maya's eyes would harden when Agent West mentioned her father, and how her expression would shift, briefly, into something more fragile: a surprise visit. After the school event that evening, Jessica was walking home when she saw Maya standing by the school gates, looking at the crowd of students leaving. The weight of what was unsaid hung in the air between them. Before Jessica could say anything, Maya turned toward her. "I don't want to go home tonight," Maya said, her voice barely audible. Jessica was taken aback. "What do you mean?" she asked, her confusion evident. Maya hesitated, her eyes darkening. "I don't want to go back to the empty house. I don't want to face it. Not tonight. Something about the way Maya spoke unsettled Jessica. The emptiness in her voice, the heaviness in her shoulders. It was as though Maya was carrying an unbearable weight, a weight that Jessica could no longer ignore. "Come with me," Jessica said impulsively, before her brain could catch up with her words. Maya blinked, surprised. "What?" "Come to my house. It's better than being alone," Jessica offered, though she wasn't even sure why she said it. Maybe it was because she finally understood that Maya needed something more than what she was offering. For a moment, Maya didn't respond. She simply stood there, lost in thought. But then, her lips curled into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "All right," Maya said quietly. "But just for a while." A quiet night. At Jessica's house, the two girls sat in the living room. Jessica tried to act normal, but the truth was, she didn't know what was happening anymore. She had invited Maya into her home, but now that they were sitting there together, there was an awkwardness that settled in between them. The kind of silence that could either break a friendship or make it stronger. Maya, as always, was calm, almost too calm. She didn't seem to mind the quiet. But Jessica could tell that Maya was on edge. Something was bothering her, something that she wasn't ready to share. "You don't have to stay," Maya said after a while. "You don't have to keep pretending like you care about me." Jessica shook her head. The words stung, but she understood why Maya said them. Maya had always kept people at arm's length, always held her cards close to her chest. "I don't have to pretend. I do care," Jessica said, her voice steady but full of sincerity. "I may not understand everything you're going through, but I care. And I don't want you to be alone." For the first time, Maya seemed to soften a little, her posture relaxed, and she met Jessica's gaze. "You can't fix everything, Jessica," Maya whispered. "But sometimes being there is enough." The unspoken truth. That night, as Jessica lay in bed, her mind wouldn't stop racing. She had wanted to help Maya, but she wasn't sure how. It was becoming more apparent that Maya's pain ran deeper than anyone knew. It wasn't just about her father's disappearance. It wasn't just about the things she'd said to Agent West. Maya was running from something much bigger, something that had been chasing her for years, and Jessica could see it in her eyes. This was only the beginning. Maya was on the verge of breaking, and Jessica couldn't help but wonder if her own involvement would push her over the edge. The days following the note were like a whirlwind for Jessica. It seemed as though everything she thought she understood about Maya had shattered into pieces. The once calm and collected girl she had come to know was now a distant figure, someone hiding behind walls of fear and secrecy. Jessica could hardly believe it. Maya, who had been so calm, so composed, was now telling her to stay away. Dangerous, that word echoed in her mind. It lingered there, like a haunting whisper. But Jessica wasn't ready to give up. She wasn't going to walk away without knowing the truth. The confrontation. By the end of the week, Jessica couldn't take it anymore. She needed answers. She needed to understand why Maya was pushing her away. So she decided to confront her. There was no more waiting, no more hesitation. She found Maya sitting on the steps behind the school. She was alone, staring off into the distance, her usual calm expression replaced by a look of deep turmoil. Jessica hesitated for a moment, but then she stepped forward. "Maya," she said softly. Maya didn't look up at first, but after a few seconds, she turned to face Jessica. Her eyes were tired, filled with something Jessica couldn't quite identify. "I told you to stay away." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "You don't mean that," Jessica replied. "You're scared. But I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's really going on." Maya stood up, her expression hardening. "You don't understand, Jessica. This isn't just about my father. It's about me. It's about the things I've done, the people I've hurt, things that you shouldn't be a part of." Jessica shook her head. "I don't care about your past, Maya. I care about you, and I'm not going to leave you alone just because it's hard. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself." There was a long pause before Maya spoke again. Her voice cracked slightly, revealing the weight she had been carrying all this time. I wasn't always like this, Maya confessed. I used to be someone else, someone who followed orders. My father trained me to be someone strong, someone who could handle the toughest situations. But then things went wrong. People got hurt. And my father, he was forced to disappear to protect me from the consequences. Jessica's heart sank as she listened. She had never imagined that Maya had been involved in something so dark, so dangerous. I thought running away from all of it would make it stop, Maya continued, her voice trembling now. But it never does. The past keeps following me, and now I'm dragging other people into it. People like you. The unexpected revelation. Maya took a step back, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of everything she had been holding in was finally too much to bear. You don't know the truth about my father, Maya whispered, barely audible. He's not just some FBI agent. He's part of something much bigger. He was involved in cases that go deeper than just the law. He's connected to people who don't care about right or wrong. People who will stop at nothing to get what they want. Jessica's mind was reeling. She had known that Maya's father was connected to the FBI, but she had never imagined it went this deep. What do you mean? What's your father really involved in? Jessica asked, her voice shaking with the magnitude of the words. Maya's eyes locked onto Jessica's with a look that was both resigned and determined. My father is part of a secret government organization. They deal with threats that go beyond what the FBI usually handles. My dad's job was to make sure certain things stayed hidden. But when he wanted out, they made sure that he couldn't leave. They made him disappear. Jessica felt her stomach twist in knots. She had no idea what kind of world Maya was talking about, but she could see the pain in her eyes. The way her words felt like a confession, a burden she had carried for too long. That's why I've had to hide, Jessica. That's why I can't let anyone get too close, Maya continued. Because if they find out about you, if they see that you know me, they'll come after you too. They'll use you to get to me.